Today's Daf Yomi is Chullin Daf Gimel Chullin 3, and we're going to start 6 lines from the top on Gimel Amud Aleph. So the Gemara says on today's Daf, yesterday the Gemara had said, we said a kol sholchinu shlitasin kshera. Everyone can shech, which implies lechatchila, and shlitas and it's ksher, which implies b'diavad. So why is our Mishnah saying everyone can slaughter even initially, and then it's only good after the fact? So the Gemara is going to give 6 answers to this question. Yesterday's answer was Rabba Bar Ula, and he said when it said everybody can shech, that means even if you're tamei and if you're tamei and you're shechting chulin al ta'aros hakodesh and your shechita is kshera, even if it's tamei b'kodshim, even if you're tamei and you slaughtered kodshim, then after the fact it's okay. Abaye, the Gemara is not going to like that answer, and you'll see why at the end of the daf today, because they say, why are we talking about kachim here? But Abaye gives a different answer. Abaye says, Hachi Katani. This is how we learn our Mishnah. Hakol Shochtin, everyone can slaughter the animal. Afilu Kuti, even a Kuti. What's a Kuti? A Kuti is somebody that means different things in the Gemara, because sometimes, because of the censors, they substituted the word Kuti for Goy. But here in this context, the kuti means a person who is there when Sancheirav came did population transfer. He brought in some non-Jews into the land, and they converted when Hashem sent lions to scare them. So they were, it's called Geri Arayas. Their conversion is suspicious. So we're not sure 100% if they're Jewish or Jewish, but they're suspected of going back on their conversion. So Abaye says this is what it means. Everyone can slaughter even a kuti. Bamed varmamurim. When do we say that a kuti can do the shlita? Kishiyisro omed al gabav. When a Jew is standing next to him, watching him, making sure he's not doing a mistake. But he's not messing up the shlita. But if the Yisrael is not standing next to him, he's just yotze v'nichnas, he's just going in and out. Then we're going to say he can slaughter. Why? Rashi says a very interesting reason. Rashi says that if Yisrael is just being yotze v'nichnas, he can't give it to him to slaughter. The avagav the huchsaku bala atzmam, even though the Kutians themselves have a presumption that they're not going to do that they themselves are not going to eat the non-kosher, they don't care if they give it to the Jews to eat, the other Jews, because they don't hold by the verse, if they don't hold that do not put a stumbling block before a blind person means you can't give somebody non-kosher to eat. They say it means that you can't put a stumbling block literally in front of a blind person. Yeah? What? Well, this whole term of Yotze and Nichnas is something that applies to a mashgiach in different contexts. That can you make sure that the mashgiach is not that can you make sure that the food is kosher, even though it requires a mashgiach at all times? Can you just walk in and out? That's why. Is that okay? So under certain circumstances, a mashgiach is Yotze b'Nichnas. That's the term. So here we say, but for the kuti, if it's back to the text of our Gemara, that with the kuti you could give it to him, that if you are standing next to him. But if he's yotze v'nichnas, then you can't give it to him, because he might do with neiver and give it to the non-Jew. Vim shachat, but let's say he slaughtered it while you're just yotze v'nichnas, then chotech kazayis spot, so you cut off an olive-sized portion of the meat, v'nosin lo, and he eats from it. Achlo, if he ate from it, mutar le'achol mishlita, so then you could eat from mishlita. Lo achol, but if he wouldn't eat from it, then you cannot eat from his shlita. So again, the first 2 parts is that everybody could slaughter, even a kusi, if you're standing next to him. And his shlita is kshera. That's if you give it to him to eat, and he eats from it. With the exception of a cherashot of a katan, da fil diavad namilo, the deaf mute minor. Even b'diavad, you can't eat from it. Shema yishu, shema yidrusu, shema yachlidu. Maybe they messed up the shlita through pausing or chopping or burrowing, and then it wouldn't be okay. V'kulin teshachtu, and when it says in the Mishnah that everyone shacht v'acherim ronos, and then people are standing next to it, it's kosher. What's that referring to? V'kuon sheshachtu ahai. What's that referring to? If you want to say it refers to the previous clause, if that's what it's referring to, vim shachtu mibal. It shouldn't say v'kuon sheshachtu. It should just use the phrase of, and if they slaughtered el akusi, you can't be referring to a kusi. Ha'amris kishisro omid al gabav shachar afilu lechatchila. It says there they could even slaughter lechatchila. So it doesn't. So it's not clear who that last clause is. So this answer of Abaye is kasha. It's difficult. So the answer of Abaye, the Gemara leaves as a kasha. I'm a Rava v'yotze v'nichnas lechatchilu. Rava says, what are you talking about? Rava has a different question on Abaye's answer. If he's yotze v'nichnas, then even lechatchilu he should be able to do it. V'atanan, didn't we learn? Hame niach ove kuchavim b'chanuso v'Yisrael yotze v'nichnas mutar. If somebody has wine, we had this in Avodah Zarah. Somebody has wine. If you leave wine, and you have an idolater staying in your shop, then as long as the Jew comes in and out, you can eat from it. So that seems even l'chatchila you could do yotze v'nichnas. So the Gemara says ha'asa mikatani meniach. There it doesn't say that you can do it l'chatchila. There it's hamaniach katani. That's also b'di'evet. Katani di'avad. So he said, Rabbi says, I have a different question on you. From the following Mishnah, somebody who's watching the wine, he doesn't need to be sitting there watching it the whole time. Even if he's just yotzev v'nichnas, it's mutter. So we see yotzev v'nichnas is even lechatchila by a kusi. This is the third version of our Mishnah, third approach. Rava says this is what it means. Everyone can do the shchita. Va'afilu kusi, even a kusi could shech. Bamed varim amurim, when can a kusi shech l'chatchila kishu Yisrael yotzev v'nichnas, when the Jew is yotzev v'nichnas. Aval bao matzo sheshach. But let's say you arrive and you found that the kusi slaughtered it. Then you chop off a piece of that meat, you give it to him to eat. So if he eats from it, he's allowed. If he doesn't eat from it, then you can't eat from it. And then we continue like we said before. Except except even with the evidence is no good because maybe they messed it up. We have the same question we had on Abaye. When it says that everyone can shecht and the shechita is ksher, what's it referring to? It should say if they slaughtered. The kuti can do lechatchila even yotzev v'nichnas. So it's the same question that we had on Abaye. So the Gemara leaves it as kasha. What's the problem?
Saying chop it up and give it to them. What's the concern that they did?
No, because if they did it as a kosher way, then they'll eat it. If they didn't do it as kosher, they won't eat it. Rashi said the concern is lifnei iver. You're concerned that they'll give it to you even though it's not kosher. So if they eat from it, we know that it's kosher.
Why would you not eat it?
Why would they not eat it? Because they were strict. Rashi says, the afagav the hochsaku ba'atzman, even though they have the mitzvah themselves, ein makpidinim yachilu Yisrael nevelos. They're not careful. They don't care to give it to others because they don't believe in lifnei iver. Fourth answer is Rav Ashi. Rav Ashi Amar Hachi Katani. This is what Rav Ashi says. Hakol shochtin va'afilu Yisrael mumar. So even a Jew who's a sinner can do the shlita. Gemara says mumar lamai. How is he a sinner? He's a sinner to eat non-kosher food because he has an appetite for non-kosher food, not because he's actual wants to sin just to sin. He has a temptation. Rashi says, what are we talking about here? If he won't find kosher food, he'll eat the non-kosher food. And so since the knife is checked and he's holding it, he'll make a good shchita. Because as long as he finds kosher food, he'd rather eat that. And if he doesn't have a kosher knife, he's not going to check to make sure he'll find the kosher knife. And so that's why it says even a Jew who can who eats non-kosher food sometimes, then such a person can shech lechatchila. Could the Rava, like Rava said, I'm a Rava Yisrael mumar ochon avelo soteyavon. There's a Jew who eats non-kosher food, Rahman Litzlan. Bodek sakim and no. So you just have to check the knife on top of Gimel and Beis, and we give it to him umuter lachol mishchitaso, and then we could eat from it. Avalo badak, but let's say he didn't check the knife, and then we gave him the meat. Well, yishlot, he can't do it. Vim shachat. But if he did slaughter it, bodek sakino acharav, then you could still check afterwards. Nimtes sakino yafa, if the knife is good, mutter lachol mishlitaso. Then you're allowed to eat from mishlita. Vimlav also lachol mishlitaso. So Rav Ashi's answer is that when it says you could akol sholten chachli, well, that's even in mumar with avon by checking the knife. But if you Shechita doesn't share it, if you didn't check the knife beforehand, you could check it afterwards. And continuing, okay, we have the problem. What did this last clause go on? So it must refer to Yisrael Mummer, the Mummer, either Badak Sakav and Nasan. If you check the knife, Amr Shachal Chatila, you then can do it even Chatila, the low Badak. But if you didn't check it, either iso sakin live the kehashi, the way so sakin kechem rona, so my ave, domim sakin pekuma shachet. So if there are others there, then we already said if you check the knife and you gave it to me, you could check the chatkilu, and if you didn't check it, if the knife is there, check it. And what do you care if others watching? And if there's no knife, well, who cares if others saw it? So therefore, we have a question on Rav Ashi's approach also. Fifth approach is Ravina, and we're going to have two answers, two approaches to Ravina. Ravina Amar Hachi Katani. Hakol Shochtin. This is what Ravina says. Hakol Mumchin Shochtin. Everyone who's an expert can slaughter. Mumchin, Rashi says, what is the Mumchin? That they know the laws of Shechita. They studied Hilchot Shechita. They did what's the classic work on Hilchot Shechita? The Simla Chadasha. They know the Simla Chadasha. So I call Shochten, call Mumchin Shochten. Mumchin v'aval pishem muchzakim. Yeah, they studied the theory, but they never did the practical. They never slaughtered in front of us 3 times to see that, make sure they could do it without passing out. So that's what it means. I call Mumchin, I call Shochten, anybody who knows the laws. And even though he's not a muchzak, when can he do a chatchila? When we know he knows how to say the words of shlita. But if we don't know that he knows how to do it, he can't do it. And if he's slaughtered, then after the fact we check him. So Ravina's answer is, what does it mean everyone can do a chatchila? If we know that he knows the laws. But and we checked him, but if we don't know, then we could check him afterwards. It's okay. Same answer. What does this last phrase mean? What does that mean? If you want to say it refers to charashot of a cotton, we already said that. But both can sagi. So what do you mean the person is not a mumcha? We check him to see if he knows what he's doing. Gemara says the way still come on the live the gate. He's no longer there to check him. Meaning to say, if others saw him do it, even though he's no longer there to check him, then we're going to say it's okay. So Ravina is the first one who has the solution to that answer. The Ikadamri, alternative answer of Ravina Amar Hachi Katani. This is what Ravina says. Hakol Shochten. Hakol Muchzakin Shochten. Not Hakol Mumchin, but anybody who's slaughtered in front of us 3 times can shecht it. Muchzakin Aval Pisha Ein Mumchin. He slaughters in front of us even though we're not sure he knows the laws. That only works if he did it in front of us 2 or 3 times without fainting. But if he hasn't slaughtered in front of us 2 or 3 times, if he can't do it, lest he faints. But if he slaughtered and he said, I'm sure that he didn't faint, so what's this case? Is that he does the shlita because we know he's a muchzak. But the evidence, if he wasn't a muchzak, but he says, I know I didn't faint, then it's okay. What?
Both. It's not like that be either or.
Oh, I mean, it's just a question. What did Ravina say? Did Ravina? Because each one has a question on it. You'll see. The Gemara is going to say why each one has a question. When it says everyone who slaughters it, so what he said, what do you mean that everyone who slaughtered is kosher? So Babar Lisagi, he just says, I'm sure. Well, Gemara says the Leisel Kamal Shailai. So he's not there to ask him. So Ravina says that what's the last clause here referring to? Where he's not there to ask him if he's a muchsak and or if he's a mumcha. So Ravina v'Rav Bar Avua v'Rav Bar Ua Kabai v'Rava v'Ravashi lo Amri. They don't accept the three middle opinions because those all had a kasha. How do you interpret the last clause of the Mishnah? Shouldn't the kasha will? Bekul and Karabba Bar Bar Ua, they all don't accept the opinion of Rav Bar Ua, which we said in yesterday's daf. Why? Lo Amri Krishna. The Amris Hachaika, because remember he had to explain why is this our Mishnah here talking about Kachim? It doesn't make sense. Our Mishnah is talking about Chullin, so why would you say interpret our Mishnah talking about Kachim? So according to the approach that says Hachaikar Adraba, the main point is not here. Hasamikar in Kachim is written. The Kachim Kai. So it should stay there. And Lahachlish in the Amris Hasamikar, Vahachi Adi Tamim Tamim Bechulin Tamim Nami Tamim B'Dashin. And according to the approach that says that there, it's the main thing, it's just mentioned here on Pasan. Well, it doesn't make sense because we would say Tame Bechulin Gufelo it's stricha. We don't even need the whole topic to be talking about a Tame who slaughters Chulin. Chulin Shanato Al Torah Sakodesh Lavka Kodesh Tamu. Because where would you come up with this idea that just because the guy says that this is Chulin, I'm doing on the as though it's Kodesh, that it has the law of Kachim. So they don't accept Rav Bar Avula. Kulu Karavina lo Amri. They all reject Ravina. Why? According to the first opinion that says that if he's a mumcha he could check, but if he's not a mumcha he can't check. We don't want to accept that approach because because the majority of people don't mess around and do a shlita unless they're an expert. So he clearly knows it. So that's not what the second clause of the Mishnah is talking about. We only say it's okay, if he's muhsak, we don't have to be worried that he's going to faint. Most people are not so tender that they're going to faint. Why? So remember, now we have the three middle ones who said, who all couldn't explain the last clause. Abaye said it was a kuti, and Rava doesn't accept that. Kikushya, because he said of his question, because how do you explain the last clause? Abaye will Amar Karava. Abaye doesn't explain like Rava because again, Rava challenged Abaye from the case of where Yosef and Nichnas is good even l'chatchila by Yain Nesach. Abaye doesn't hold like Rava because Hasam lo naga hachanaga. There in the case of Yain Nesach, nobody touched anything, but here in the Shlita he's touching it. Ravashi lo Amar Ketravayu. Ravashi. So Ravashi lo Amar Ketravayu Kosavar Kusem Geri Arayasin. So Ravashi doesn't hold like both of them because these are the position that the Kusim are Geri Arayosin. That the Kusim were never really converted, so they can't do it. They're what's called Geri Arayos. They're not good at all. Hold on one second. And so therefore they're not Jewish at all, so therefore they can't do it. Abaye doesn't hold like Ravashi, de Rava, because he doesn't hold like this position of Rava that if you're a mummer with nevelos and you could just give him a knife and he could check it. Ella Rava, my time so why doesn't Rava follow his own logic that just give him that it's applying to a mummer nevelos and you could just give him his knife and he could check it? He says, with Varav da Abaye Kamar, so the Gemara says when Rava gave his answer, it wasn't really his answer. He was just saying his answer according to Abaye, but he himself doesn't follow that position. Okay, so that's today's daf. Baruch Hashem. Okay, Baruch Hashem, this is today's daf. All right. Shikoyach.